Well, hey there, Pantherland. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it happens to be that you are watching this video. I hope that you're enjoying yourself. I hope that you're having a great day. And here we are, everybody. I don't know about you, but it's basically the end of September, right? Oh my gosh, this month is done. This year is flying by, and we are doing some great things here at Dudley High School to make sure that we are focusing on high quality teaching, great outcomes for ourselves, great outcomes for our students, and of course, continuing to learn and try new things every day. This week, everyone, for my weekly video, I wanted to do a quick recap on the optional PD that I ran this week, which was around the idea of activating strategies. So as we know, activating strategies is one of our 5 elements of our 5-point lesson plan here at Dudley High School. And for the most part, we are using activating strategies at the beginning of our lesson as we think about warm-ups and bell ringers and those types of activities that students can do when they're coming into the room to kind of set the expectation, set the idea of what class is going to be about and how we are working in the space. But as we talked about in the session this week, everybody, we can use activating strategies throughout the classroom. We don't just have to contain activating strategies to the beginning of the class, right? When we're thinking about where activating strategies might be necessary, we might want to think about what are the activities that students might see as a chore or as really, really boring. And we might have to think about ways that we can prime the pump and get them interested or get them engaged before they get into that task, right? Think about your students and think about what is difficult for them or what's challenging for them, right? This may also be a place for differentiation because certain students might need that activating strategy before an activity where other students might not need that activating strategy. This is a really great opportunity for you to kind of dive into some groupings, some strategic groupings, focused on data, right, of different types to really kind of make sure that you're designing and planning with specific students in mind, right? Usually when we try to do that one size fits all type of environment, we're not going to hit every single student in the way that we might want to. The other thing to think about when we think about our activating strategies, everybody, is not just activating the students' brains, but activating their mouths, activating their hands, activating their ability to speak and write and think outside, right? And so we want to think about how those activating strategies can also be spaces for student voices, right? By getting them to start talking to each other, talking to us, talking in small groups, that talking can then be the building block to a later writing task. For example. So again, having some of those sentence starters for speaking, having some of those sentence starters that are similar for writing can help to build a little bit of that foundation that some students might need in order to be able to engage in that academic dialogue that you're expecting them to do, right? Remember, if we ask the students just to have a conversation, some of them might not be able to access the ability to have a conversation in an academic setting. But if we give them some of the vocabulary or some of the structures to engage in that work, then they might have more success. Lastly, everybody, we want to think about how in our classrooms and in our lessons, we can connect to real life and we can connect to real people. And I know that sometimes that's kind of difficult, but I do want to kind of put a shout out to a few teachers that I've seen this week who are definitely doing that. I walked into a civics classroom, I believe it was, civics and government, and they were talking about Articles of Confederation, but then at the same time, they were making connections to Hurricane Katrina and the response to Hurricane Katrina and how the ineffective response to Hurricane Katrina kind of shows us some of the elements of the founding fathers' issues when it came to the Articles of Confederation and how we're still having some of those government issues today. Right? I thought that was a really great example of sort of taking what could be an old or very kind of hard to understand concept and really kind of making it a little bit more current, a little bit more focused, and a little bit more engaged in the student interests, right? Because again, like this documentary that just come out about Hurricane Katrina, the 20-year anniversary, some of our families and some of our students might have connections to those who were displaced by Katrina. So again, that's a really great connection. Thinking about finding ways to show students that they're at the center of the decisions that you're making in the classroom, right? When you are kind of bringing forth an activity or bringing forth a lesson, explaining to them maybe why you're doing that based on how things have gone in the past or based on what things have come up in your grading or your feedback, right? Oftentimes, when we can clarify the why for something, we can get more engagement and we can get more buy-in and we can activate that the behaviors that we want when we're getting into the learning, right? Also, asking for student feedback when it comes to lessons and activities, and then applying that feedback moving forward and showing them the way that you're applying that feedback moving forward can also be a great way to kind of engage the students in those activating strategies as well. Of course, everybody, down at the bottom of this video, I have some resources for you. My first resource is the session slide deck. So that just goes over each of the elements of class. I kind of have a section on beginning of class. I kind of have a section on before you read something. And then I have a section before you do something, right? So before we do a task or an assessment or something like that. I've got a few strategies that apply to each of them. And I'm, of course, always happy to come and sit down with you and talk about those strategies one-on-one and really explore them a little bit more deeply if you would like to. I've also got a blog post below that, everyone, about ways to sort of increase engagement. It's from Stanford University, their Teaching and Learning Center, and it really focuses on different things that teachers can do to kind of increase engagement in the classroom. I like the way that that blog post made it very simple and made it very clear that those ways of increasing engagement could be applied to different moments of the classroom. And then lastly, everybody, I've got a PDF of Activating Strategies Toolkit. It's about 3 or 4 pages of just a list of various strategies. They apply to all different kinds of content areas. Some of them you might know, like a KWL chart, a know, want to know, learn chart, right? Some of them looked really engaging for me. I like the one about letter writing. I thought that was kind of a cool one. So I invite you to explore that option, everyone, if you're really thinking about some ideas for what you can do in the classroom. Next week, everybody, with my video, I might have a special guest star, so be on the lookout for what we've got coming up. Also, everybody, just be on the lookout for emails about testing. We do have our first big testing windows coming up soon, so be on the lookout for PSAT testing information, and also be on the lookout for information related to local assessments for our biology teachers, our English 2 teachers, and our Math 1 and Math 3 teachers. Of course, everybody, I am here in the Teaching and Learning Center most of my days, unless I have to be off campus for some sort of meeting or something like that. And of course, we've got our new math coach, Miss Wilkerson, down at the end of the E hallway, or the D hallway, excuse me, willing, ready, and able to assist in any way, shape, or form. So as always, everyone, use us, let us know how we can help you, because we are here to make sure that the difficult work of teaching is just a little bit lighter every single day. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you in the hallways.